Plato, Spinoza, Marx, Nietzsche, chances are those names probably ring a bell, and they're just a few of those household names in philosophy that are widely read and widely recognized. But today I want to share with you a few philosophers that I think you should read and that are highly underrated. Now, that's not to say the names I'm about to say are not recognized or read, because most of them are, but I think they certainly deserve a bit more appreciation than they currently get. So let's dive on in. Now, first on my list is Blaise Pascal, and Pascal was a highly intelligent French philosopher, and beyond his philosophical writings, he was also an inventor, a mathematician, and a physicist as well. Now, there are two reasons why I think Pascal is a bit overlooked, and the first being he was writing at the same time as his fellow French contemporary Descartes, who sparked the rationalist movement and is a huge figure in the world of philosophy. The second reason being that his primary work, Pensées, is a bit all over the place, and it's not really his fault because this is essentially a collection of his thoughts, his notes, his ideas, and it was published posthumously. So after his death, it got organized and published. So it's not really his fault he didn't really get a chance to flesh out the ideas fully and organize them. So because of that, there are some general themes in Pensées, or thoughts in English, but he didn't present a specific system that was later carried on by other philosophers. Despite that fact, Pensées is chock full of fascinating ideas and arguments centered around the existence of God, our place in the universe, passions, diversions, how to handle disagreements, and a lot more. To highlight just a few, I specifically enjoyed his writings on diversions. He explains how much of our life is spent seeking diversions from boredom, because when we're bored and left to our own thoughts, we start to feel the dread of death. So the pursuit of money, goods, pleasures, etc. provide us with a purpose and distraction from these negative feelings. It's also why we aspire to be rich or powerful, because money can afford us more access and a greater number of distractions. His most famous argument is Pascal's wager, in which he utilizes probability to assert that it's a more logical decision to believe in God's existence than to not. Because if you believe in God and he turns out to not exist, then you face the same consequence as a non-believer. But if you don't believe in God and he turns out to exist, then you are damned to eternal hell. Overall, I find myself returning back to his work quite often, and I think that makes him well worth the read. Now, the second philosopher you should read is Johann Fichte, and Fichte is a German writer who often gets forgotten about or thrown in the shadows because he's surrounded by heavyweight philosophical thinkers like Hegel and Kant. And although his writings didn't shake up the world, he is a very prominent figure in the German idealism movement, as well as his writings on free will and self-consciousness, specifically in the vocation of man, make him a very valuable read. Fichte believed that the will was a spiritual force rather than purely a sensible one, and that it was separate from the objective world, meaning it doesn't fall under the same deterministic laws of causality. Therefore, with this declared free will, we should rely on reason and our conscience when it comes to how we ought to act in the world and what we ought to do. In the vocation of man, he describes the intimate relationship between the spiritual will, our identity, morality, and a lot more, which makes this very insightful and very intriguing read for anybody. Lastly, we have a more modern philosopher, and that is Albert Camus. And at a time when existentialism and Sartre are gaining huge popularity, Camus comes at the problem of nihilism with a different approach. In The Gay Science, Nietzsche announced the death of God, which in simplest terms meant society's growing dissociation from religion. The problem with this is it creates a void for people as their meaning in life and hope for an afterlife gets ripped from underneath them. Instead of taking the existentialist approach where one creates their own meaning through their actions and their life's work, Camus comes at it at a different angle. He best describes this conflict of purpose within his work, The Myth of Sisyphus, which lays the groundwork for absurdism. For Camus, life is absurd because we have a teleological view of the world where we expect it to have a purpose, but in reality, life is meaningless. Rather than leaving it at that and falling into nihilism, he asserts that life is worth living and that we should rebel against the absurd and accept life for what it is. Although Camus is somewhat widely read, I think his work can greatly assist anyone dealing with an existential crisis or just looking to explore their place in this world. And for that, Camus is a notable thinker to read. Well, that's it for today's video, and like I said, it's not that these philosophers aren't already read and recognized, because in most cases they are, but I personally just believe that they deserve just a little bit more attention than they currently are getting. And there's plenty of others too, so if you did enjoy this video, I can definitely make another version or edition of this part 2 later on. So comment down below, let me know what your thoughts are, like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe for more content, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.